Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back my good friend Laurie Jacobson. You may remember her. She was a waitress at the Comedy Store back in the early 80s and then became a Hollywood scandal writer of some really good best-selling books. And I'm going to have her back on today to talk about those books, because last time we talked more about the Comedy Store and all the stuff that happened with comedians there and all the crazy shit that was going on at the time. And we're going to talk about that, talk about her convention appearances that are coming up. Her and her husband, John Provost, who played Timmy on Lassie, do a lot of conventions together, and they got some convention appearances coming up to promote, and a couple other things that I want to talk to her about as well. So yeah, here is my interview with Laurie Jacobson.
Hello.
Hey Laurie, welcome back. How are you?
Hey Tommy, I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Just been trying to decide what color I'm going to paint my toenails.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you do that?
Oh, yes, since I was 13 years old.
Really? And what colors have you gone with?
Oh, I've done red. I've had purple, pink, light blue.
And what was the catalyst for this?
I don't know. I've always loved painting my toenails. My mom and my grandma pretty much raised me in my early years, and so I spent a lot of time with them. I think that might have something to do with it.
All right. Interesting. Wow. I learned something about you I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. What color do you have?
Red.
Nice.
I wear different colors on my toes and my fingers. My toes are almost always red. Just because it goes with everything.
I don't do the fingers because I chew them a lot.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good. You stressing?
Oh, I'm always under stress because I'm half Italian, but not stressing at the moment.
Well, good.
So, after you left the Comedy Store and after you left Desilu, what made you want to write about Hollywood scandals and mysteries?
Well, I'm trying. Well, okay, this is what started me off.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to LA in '74.
Right.
I am in an acting class. I am driving to a movie with a friend, and he says to me, "See that hotel right there? Yes, that's where Janis Joplin died."
Mm-hmm.
Pull over! I'm like, pull over! What? I mean, and it had only been 4 years prior to that. So every time I passed it, I kept staring at it thinking, I got to go there. So one day I did. I just pulled over and went to the front desk. And of course, this was long before it was hip to have a famous person die in your establishment. So they denied it at the front desk, but told me that I could walk around if I so chose. So I'm walking around the pool. I don't know. I guess I expected a big sign that said Janis was here or something. But this guy, you could live in this place or you could rent it as a hotel room. So this guy who lived there came out and asked if he could be of help to me, and I told him what I was looking for, and he said, I lived here then. I was here that night. I helped break down her door. Let me take you there. So I was conducting my first interview before I ever thought about writing a book, but of course I asked him everything that happened that night, And indeed, at that time, because her door was, they had one of those sliding locks like in a bathroom stall.
Right.
So they had to break the door down, and it tore the frame off the door. And so they had put the door on the outside of the room because the frame had been so mangled and they didn't really take the time to fix it properly. They put the door back on the outside so it opened into the hall instead of into the room. And that was because of the night 4 years prior that they had to break the door down. So, there it was, like so fresh, and people that still lived there and so I started doing some research, and I had this wonderful uncle. He moved to Los Angeles in 1915.
Wow.
He told me that I asked him what it was like back then, and he said on Sunset Boulevard and Sunset Strip, before it was the Strip, the smell of the orange blossoms was absolutely intoxicating, which, of course, is hard to imagine these days.
Yeah.
And he said you could see the sets to D.W. Griffith's Intolerance from anywhere in the city. Well, so he and his sister and brother would be playing in their front yard, and Mary Pickford or Charlie Chaplin literally would walk over to them and say, "We need a kid in a scene. Do any of you want to be in the movies?" And my uncle said, "I never wanted to, but my sister always did." And I thought, oh my God. So he ended up in PR. And told me that what I read in the magazines and the newspapers often wasn't to be believed, and that I should go off and do my research on stuff and then come back and ask him how it really was. So that's how I learned. He sort of taught me to pull back the veil of publicity and what he did to see what really happened. And, I got hooked.
Wow. That happened in 74, but it was a while before you actually went through with it, and made a career of it and everything?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I just gathered, I think, for many years. I had great stories, I was pursuing my acting career, and my stories were always popular at parties, what really happened to Marilyn or Jean Harlow. But suddenly one night I realized, it should be a book. And I sat down and wrote one, and I sold it right away. So, because there was Hollywood, Babylon, and nothing else. And so there was an open door right there, and I went through it, baby.
Nice.
And after that, someone optioned my book for a documentary, and the next thing I knew, I was writing a documentary, and Jack Haley Jr., a wonderful producer who had just produced at that time a film called That's Entertainment.
Yep.
And he saw my documentary and said, I'm producing a television show, and I'd like you to write for it. And it was a magazine-style show with a segment on Hollywood history. And then I worked for him for about a decade on some spectacular stuff, and he really got to meet everybody except Fred Astaire is pretty much how I felt. I got to meet everyone that I had loved in old Hollywood that was still alive.
Wow.
And he was a great, great storyteller. So, I was not really making much as an actress. So, this I went through this door instead. And I did a ton of television and True Hollywood Stories, and dozens of documentaries on scandals and mysteries.
Yep, I saw you on all of those back in the day.
Those were fun.
I was in high school. I actually miss Mysteries and Scandals. I thought that was pretty cool. But
oh yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun, and they were pretty good. You know, they were pretty good at what they did.
Mm-hmm. And were you talking about Jack Haley Jr. or Sr.?
Junior.
Yeah, because Jack Haley Sr. was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know, and Jack was quite a man about town, shall we say. There was no blonde left unturned in Hollywood. Jack Haley Jr. and David Niven Jr. Those two, you know.
Yeah.
Jack really, I think he got everyone except Michelle Phillips.
Wow.
But, you know, so he had and he was charming and, you know, really wasn't a kiss and tell guy, but he had amazing stories. And one of my favorites was his parents. His mother had been a Ziegfeld girl.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a great beauty, Flo Haley.
Yeah.
And when she married Jack Haley and they moved to L.A., and of course she retired from show business, she opened a beauty shop, a hair salon.
Nice.
And it was very popular in the 30s and 40s for movie actresses and starlets to go to Flo's beauty shop and ask for styled pubic hair. Let's just put it out there. I call them below the belt bobs, you know, but things in the shape of, you know, lightning bolts and stars and,
my God, I love it.
So, you know, so that was crazy. I'm like looking at him like, are you nuts? This was going on in the 30s. This is amazing. And his parents lived in a New York penthouse for a while with a long staircase. And Jack was away. Maybe he was away at college, I think, and he came home for Christmas. And his dad, being, you know, 100% Irish, was having a party, and everybody was drunk. And up at the top of the and Jack walks in. Up at the top of the stairs was Frank Morgan.
Wow.
And he, you know, his father said, "Frank, I want you to meet my son Jack." And Frank took one step forward and then fell down the long staircase and landed at Jack's feet. And his father says, "Son, meet the Wizard of Oz."
Wow.
You know, so, you know, often work was sitting around listening to, when Jack was in the mood, you know, he'd tell a dozen of those. If only I had turned on a tape recorder. A few I remember, but man, it was great. I just loved working with him, and he knew everything about every film ever made.
Wow, kind of like me.
He was really amazing. So yeah, so that's kind of what, you know, that all led to that, and that was far more interesting than sitting around the set waiting to deliver your 3 lines.
Wow, that's amazing. What would you say is the difference between what you do and what a gossip columnist does?
Well, certainly there is a difference. Well, a gossip columnist's job is to make the gossip sensational, of course, and to titillate. And I really was looking for the truth. The people that I wrote about in my earlier books, I truly loved them. And they made enormous contributions to the business that I loved. and to the town that I was adopting as my own. So I always wanted to get to the truth of the matter, because often gossip columnists malign people and their reputations.
Wow.
And I was not writing about them for that purpose. For example, in one of my later books, it's called Dishing Hollywood, and it's we dish the scandal, and then there is a recipe connected to the scandal. So one of the people I immediately wanted to help was Mama Cass Elliott from the Mamas and Papas.
Yep.
She did not choke on a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Some disgusting doctor who attended her in London made some crack about her weight and said, something to the effect of she was such a pig, she probably choked on a ham sandwich. And, her cause of death was something we really hadn't heard of back then.
Right.
It was a sleep apnea-induced heart attack, which indeed heavier people, can suffer from. I think that's what happened to Divine as well. Mm-hmm. But, I hated that story about her, and that stuck to her. So, Lupe Velez did not drown in a toilet either, like Kenneth Anger in Hollywood Babylon said. She went headfirst into a toilet, knocked herself out, and drowned there. What a great story.
Yeah.
But it's just a story.
Yeah. When Richard Gere dies, are you going to find out whether or not he put gerbils up his ass?
Well, we know that already. We don't have to wait till then, but my God. And that was, all we had back then was fax machines.
Right.
And that is how that story went around the world.
Yeah.
Fax by fax. Crazy. And everyone swore they had a friend who was a nurse who was in the room. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is...
that will, I'm sure that will be a footnote, which in his obit, which is really kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Or Rod Stewart having a stomach pump full of semen.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one, too. Oh.
Yeah. Some guy that worked for him got even with him by spreading that rumor.
Oh, God.
I remember Dick Cavett asked Marlon Brando if he threw horse shit out of a New York City window and yelled, "Watch out for the flying red horse." And instead of answering the question, he went on this long tirade about how the press likes to make up stories.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds like something he would have done, but at the same time, maybe not. It's a weird thing. I think though, one thing that both people like you and gossip columnists do that's the same is that you both like to make the sinner think about their sins. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, because you both write about how this person fucked this person did this, did that. Either way, if it's if it's true, basically what you're doing is making the sinner think about their sins.
Well, that makes me think of this starlet named Carol Landis, who's very popular in the 40s, and she was just so stacked. I mean, she was a very pretty lady and very busty. I think Esther Williams said, I don't know how she stood up without falling over. And pretty much, I mean, her, talents were not that strong, but she was, great icing. And she she entertained the troops overseas with Bob Hope. She came back with some form of malaria that she suffered with for the rest of her brief life. And right before her death, she was having an affair with a married man named Rex Harrison, a big actor from the UK. Of course, My Fair Lady and Dr. Dolittle and all kinds of things. And again, Esther Williams said it was the worst kept secret in Hollywood that they were having an affair. And she really believed she was down to nothing at that point. Her studio didn't want her anymore. Her last husband, who had the dreadful name of Horace Schmidlap. I just love that name.
Yeah.
Was divorcing her. She didn't really have a dime left. And she made this July 4th dinner for Rex Harrison at her home. And I think he broke the news to her that this romance was not going to end the way she had hoped. Now, when she was found dead the next morning, with some hastily written note to her mother, everyone suspected a suicide. Her life was in a downward spiral, blah, blah, blah. And every piece of anything having to do with Rex Harrison had been removed from the house. She had naked photos of him in her bedroom. She had letters from him. Everything was gone. And, he's the one that makes the terrible discovery. The maid didn't wake her. She figured she was still sleeping in the morning. He knew what he was going to see when he went in there. So, this poor maligned woman, I wanted very much to straighten things out for her. I think she made an hysterical scene with him when he broke up with her. I think she went off the deep end, kicking, scratching, sobbing, crying, and I think he pulled out a little Seconal and put it in her drink to calm her down, because there was evidence that she had laid down on the bed for a while. She did not have Seconal in her house. At that time, Seconal had no taste to it, and it was easily added to drinks. And that is also what Lupe Velez overdosed on, Seconal. And after the deaths of these two women with a Seconal overdose, the government changed the makeup of the pill to have a bitter taste, so that people knew when they were getting a Mickey Finn. But, I think Rex put her out, removed everything in the house that had anything to do with him, packed it all up, tippy-toed out like the coward that he was. And when she woke up and saw all of that, that was really the end for her. And conveniently, he must have left more pills for her, because she found some and had no prescription for them. And both she and Lupe Velez, as a matter of fact, were found on the floor in a position of trying to push themselves up, trying to get up off the floor and make a phone call the maid in the next room. Both of them appeared to be going for help. So, Sexy Rexy set that whole scene and saved his ass, made his wife fly in from London to declare her undying love. Yeah, he was a real piece of work.
Yeah.
So if I can clear that up even for, lesser stars, much less the bigger ones, I want to do that. So the gossip columnists talk all about the affair and oohing and eyeing, and but I'm there to tell you, not how it went down.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the real dark shit, and that's why I have a lot of respect for you, because I gravitate towards people who go dark in anything, because I think that when people go light, I think that they're hiding something, they're not telling everything, so that's why.
Yeah, there'll be an element missing,
Yeah.
That just, adds confusion.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that no one had ever uncovered Bill Cosby's scandal, until now, last 5 years or so that's been going on.
Did I tell you that I was deposed for the case?
No, I didn't know that.
I have never been deposed before. It was very interesting, and the reason I was part of it was because a friend of mine was a victim of his was a victim of his. I'd have to remember the year that it occurred with her. But what they wanted to know was that she had told me 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like she wasn't just making it up yesterday and entering into a group lawsuit, a class action suit. She told me 22 years ago, and I will never forget what she told me.
Wow.
So it was horrible, and she was young.
Mm-hmm.
She was young, and he did it really right under the watchful eye of her parents.
Oh, God.
And, and the number of men that were there that night, from the chauffeur to the agent, that had to be part of it, that had to be looking the other way or helping her to the limo, or get, she woke up in a hotel room in bed naked with him and has no memory of getting there.
Wow.
So he didn't carry her there by himself. So that makes you just.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever confronted you that you've written about?
I think one person once contested something that I said, and now I can't even remember what it was. But no person ever, confronted me because of something that I wrote about them. I did hold off naming one person, but now he's dead, so so nobody can get in my way. But when I was writing about this lovely actress named Inger Stevens.
Oh, yes.
TV, The Farmer's Daughter, and I think she had just done a Clint Eastwood movie, I think Hang 'em High.
Yeah.
She and Steve McQueen were the first two television stars to make the big break to the big screen. And she would have had a great career, but she died. And she had a history of depression. Who knows? She might have been bipolar. But she also had a brutal husband. And the really interesting thing was, okay, in the 60s, she is this Swedish babe, right? Mm-hmm. Blonde, blue-eyed, alabaster skin, like a Nicole Kidman, but blonde.
Right.
And she married a black UCLA football star. And that was not going to, now we're talking the height of the civil rights movement. This was not going to go over in terms of, this was not a career builder to announce this. So they lived quietly in Malibu, where people were more accepting of mixed marriages, and whenever she needed to go to an event, she took her agent. So eventually they parted ways, she and her husband, and she was living in the Hollywood Hills, and she was dating a recent co-star of hers, a newcomer to the screen, and his name was Burt Reynolds. And she had Burt over for dinner, and they had a fight, and he's such a shit that he hit her, knocked her on the chin. What a gentleman. Such an ass. And so he left. She got on the phone and called the girlfriend. Asked the girl, it was her, I think it was her hairstylist or makeup artist, someone she was very close to, and asked if she could come over, and she couldn't come over, and they made plans for later in the week. She told her that she was still furnishing this house that she had moved into, and she had cash on the counter because an antique dealer was coming over with some chairs for her the next day. She had plans. And she was making a sandwich, which is the recipe I give in Dishing Hollywood. She was making a sandwich when, quite obviously, someone came to the door. And I am quite sure it was her soon-to-be ex-husband who was really pissed. He was losing his golden goose. And he didn't like it one bit. And she had bruises on her upper arms, and she died of a lethal... The lady she had made plans with the night before found her unconscious on the kitchen floor, where I believe the ex-husband had held her forcibly and made her wash pills down her throat with booze. The cash was gone, and she didn't have a prescription for those pills anywhere in the house. And and because of her history of depression, everyone said, "Oh, poor Inger," and wrote it off as a suicide. Not a suicide, was a homicide.
Wow.
So, it's why I don't write fiction. It doesn't get better than what really happened.
Wow. And I love Burt Reynolds. My first movie was Cannonball Run. Like, I could still quote every line of that movie to this day. Wow. But I'm not surprised, though, because he seems like a wife beater. Have you ever...
And that was early. That was early. I mean, every woman he was ever with ended up leaving him. Yeah. Lonnie, Sally Field. He had great tech. Dinah Shore was the only one. I think he never hit Dinah Shore.
She probably would have hit him because she was a strong woman.
And he owed his career to her.
Yeah. I know. Well, he owed his career to her. He also owed his career to Johnny Carson, because once he hit the talk show circuit, then everybody wanted to cast him,
Yes, he was super charming, very funny. That's what attracted the women to him. But underneath, he was just really like a sociopath.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. I see him do interviews now. He's just deteriorating in his 80s because all those stunts he did when he was younger. I mean, he got injured a lot, and his body's just wearing out on him.
Yeah, there were mad rumors that he had AIDS back in the day, which of course was not true, but he was having his blood he had something, some illness he was suffering from, where he had his blood cleaned. A lot of people who had AIDS in the 80s were also trying that, where all of your blood is, cycled out of your body and back in.
Yeah.
I saw him during that time. He, came into Jack Haley's office quite a bit for a show that we were working on, and I just remember he looked so weird and ill.
Yeah, because he had TM.
Yeah, well, what comes around goes around sometimes.
Yeah, because he had TMJ from City Heat when he had that fight scene, and it looked like he had AIDS. Yeah. Have you ever written something about somebody and you later thought, maybe I shouldn't have written that?
No, I don't think so. I wrote about Jean Harlow in my first book, and I fell for the PR and didn't get the right story. Mm-hmm. So that always made me mad. But that was like the only one I remember where I took the bait.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I'm famous, and if you want to write Tommy Kovac has a fetish for belly buttons, you can do that.
Ooh. Toenail polish and belly buttons. All right. Well, this is getting sexier by the minute.
Yep. I'm a pretty, I wouldn't say promiscuous person, but I am a pretty sexy person in terms of what I like.
Well, I see another book.
Yeah. What did you think a couple months ago when Mitzi Shore passed?
Oh, God, that was huge. That was really, really huge. I mean, and I thought the write-ups about her were great. And her, she was the queen. She was absolutely the queen. And it could have only happened the way it happened during the time that it happened. Mm-hmm. And she really did rule. She really did rule what we saw on talk shows for a long time. And, she was crazy, and she did a lot of, I think she did many things right. And let's face it, she had the vision. Mm-hmm. Her husband, Sammy Shore, owned the Comedy Store and only used it for he and his friends to have fun with and work out. But right. He never saw it as a venue. Right. She saw it as a venue. And she made a lot of damn money seeing it as a venue. She made a lot of other mistakes along the way, but she did good. She did good, mm-hmm. And she gave a lot of people their big breaks. Yeah. There are a lot of people she didn't see the talent in, but hey, she's only human. Yep. And then there was the Valium and champagne in the later years that blurred her vision a little. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, she was a force. She was absolutely a force.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to the Comedy Store podcast the other day, and Lou Deck was on, and he said he's been working for the last 2 years to get her a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and the rest of the family said that they were going to put the money forth to make it happen. It should have happened 20 years ago,
Wow. Well, that would be really neat. And boy, that would be really an individual thing. Not very many. There may be a few club owners. Mm-hmm. Like I bet Earl Carroll has a star, but I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But that would be. I mean, you could, if there are, you could count them on one hand. If there are other club owners that have their own star, that would be completely unique.
Yeah, I do think though she's definitely the one who deserves it because look at everybody she discovered.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my first thought was of Letterman. God, I wish I could be in Letterman's house when he heard Mitzi died,
Yeah.
There, 500 people, more, but had to sit back in their chair for a moment and,
Yeah.
and have the breath taken out of them, She was a force in so many people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget my brief time in her kingdom.
Yeah. I had Carrie Snow on the day before the huge memorial at the Comedy Store.
Oh, yeah?
And a few days later, she had her stroke. And
Yes.
I had two emotions going through me when that happened. One was, Carrie, don't do this to me. We just became friends. And two, if I conducted your last interview, I'm so honored.
Well, I will tell you that she's doing great, and she does need physical therapy.
Yeah.
Speech therapy, she graduated like week 1. Nothing can shut Carrie Snow up. But
Yeah.
She does need physical therapy, and for all of her fans and loved ones, there is a GoFundMe page for Carrie to get that physical therapy. So anybody wants to help her out, I know she would greatly appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And I see her posting on the Facebook still. She's still very sharp.
Oh yeah. And that was so shocking. I mean, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
How scary is that,
Yeah. Yeah, my mom, she had a mild stroke back in 2010. It was like a seizure stroke from, she was recovering from gastric bypass surgery. And I'm so glad that she's still coherent and she can still talk because it looked pretty bad at the time,
Wow. Well, Carrie told me she had moved into her mother's house in Merced,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, "Thank God I had to have the carpeting taken out and put in wood floors, or I never would have made it across the room to my cell phone to call for help." So she's pretty amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And very funny. Of course, that's where I met her when I worked at the Comedy Store in 81 and 82. And we have been really great friends for like 37 years. It's shocking.
Yeah, and I put off interviewing her for a long time because I had heard other comedians say that she wasn't very nice, but then I just decided to give it a chance, and I was like, no, she was very nice to me and very forthcoming too. Like, there's a lot of questions I didn't get to ask her because she told me everything,
Oh, my goodness, I don't know who would say that, because she's one of the nicest people out there, and it's probably why she didn't become a household name, because she was too damn nice,
Yeah.
It was kind of a ruthless business out there.
Yeah. Well,
And also her material was filthy.
I know, I love her material. I used to watch her on Evening at the Improv, and even though it was cleaned up, she still had that edge to her,
Yeah. I mean, and back then, back in the 80s when she was filthy, the Carson people would come and it was like, well, we love her, but nothing she said could be on the air, So,
Yes.
I mean, people were roaring, but, she had to clean it up for TV. And, which is a shame because they sure don't have to clean it up for TV now. Yeah, maybe the talk shows, even though they still bleep people seem to forget that they're not on, HBO or something. But, for those HBO specials and stuff, now they don't make anybody clean it up.
Mm-hmm. And I watched your appearance on Coffee 20 Creature Features.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple friends in the horror biz be a guest star on the show and stuff. I just love the exchanges between Vincent and the guest. It's so dry and laconic and hilarious.
Well, actually, they are doing their first Comic-Con. It's called Creatures Con.
Yep.
It's next month on Sunday, August 12th, up here in the Bay Area. It's at the San Ramon Marriott, and I'll be there. My husband, John Provost, who is Timmy on Lassie, will be there, and a bunch of other people.
Yep, I'm going to try to make an appearance there because I want to.
Oh, great!
I want to see the both of you. I want to see Miss Misery. She's been on the show. John Stanley, who hosted back in the 80s on Creature Features on KTVU Channel 2, is going to be there. He actually worked. He actually works at the San Francisco Chronicle with my dad and my uncles, and I want to see if he remembers them.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah. And William Lustig will be there. I've always wanted to meet him. I had an actress on the show not too long ago who said that she holds a grudge against him because he didn't pay her for the role that she did in his movie.
Oh, well, she should call him now.
Yeah.
Charlotte Stewart's going to be there from Eraserhead and Twin Peaks and Tremors. And C. Andrew Nelson, who is the only actor to play both Darth Vader and Han Solo in two different Lucas productions.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy Garver will be there.
Kathy Garver, yep.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Costume contest and panels, and so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That's next month. And actually, this coming Saturday, I will be at the Alameda County Fairgrounds at the Powerhouse Comic-Con.
Yep.
From 10 to 5, and again, I'll be there with my husband, John, because we're attached at the hip, even though he's in New Jersey today. But, which is why I scheduled our interview so we could be undisturbed. Oh,
I appreciate that. I was curious, though. John's never really done anything horror, has he? Because he did Lassie, and he did a bunch of movies like This Property is Condemned with Natalie Wood and stuff. But he's never really done horror, has he?
No, much to his regret. And part of that is once he made a bunch of movies before Lassie. Mm-hmm. Between the ages of 3 and 6, he made at least 10 films and, a couple of television appearances as well. But once he got Lassie, people don't realize that the television season was not short like it is now. He had 29 episodes a season, and he worked for 9 months a year.
Yeah.
And the other 3 months, he was asked to go out with Lassie to rodeos and county fairs and other promotions. All that was unpaid for, but unsalaried at least. You were expected to do that for your show. So the times that he could have perhaps squeezed in a Twilight Zone episode, was taken up with all of this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were, I was really shocked to see in his contract and then in the contracts of all of his peers, you could not portray a character that went against the character you starred as.
Yeah.
So he was not allowed to play a juvenile delinquent on Twilight Zone, which, really is so insulting to the audience. It's like saying we think that if you see this actor in another kind of role, you won't believe him again when he comes back to Lassie. So that's why those kids got typecast the way they did. That's why people believed they couldn't do anything else other than what they did.
Yeah, like Jay North on Dennis the Menace, he had trouble getting acting work after the show ended, and he left Hollywood after 20 years after that, and it was sad because he was very passionate about acting.
Yeah, he is one of my husband's oldest friends. Nice. And they grew up together, and Jay had a lot of other issues, and he was really not a very lucky person with his lot in life, and he was terribly mistreated, and no one came to his rescue. I think everyone was aware, and everybody had a family to feed. Mm-hmm. You just didn't come forward with abuse when you saw it happening back then. Yeah. And, he's very, very damaged because of it.
Yeah. That's really sad.
But he's doing okay. He lives in Florida. He's doing good.
That's good.
He was a very angry person for a while.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing his E! True Hollywood Story. He seemed he wasn't doing that great, and he still has that youthfulness about him, even though he's a grown man now and stuff. But he still has that Dennis innocence about him. Yeah,
he does. He has that twinkle in his eye. And that's where his dear friend and our dear friend Paul Peterson came in. Paul was one of the kids on the Donna Reed show, he and Shelley Fabre, and he became a big star in his own right. I think he recorded 6 albums and had a couple of big hit songs. He went from little kid to teen idol for sure. But his time ended in his early 20s. And he said Mickey Rooney came. He said there had been a mudslide, and my house was full of 2 feet of mud. Mm-hmm. His wife had just left him for Bill Bixby, and his contract was canceled. And he said Mickey Rooney came over and gave me the best advice I ever got, which was leave town, because they're not going to call you for another 20 years. That's what happened to me, and that's what's going to happen here. And that's what Paul did. He went off, he moved to the East Coast, he wrote 17 books, and he noticed that a lot of his peers weren't making it. There were suicides and a lot of trouble with alcohol and drugs. And he saw it as a problem to his generation of kids, and they were his friends. So he started this wonderful organization called A Minor Consideration. And he went to work getting laws changed for minors in any field, athletes or, but primarily in the acting world. SAG didn't have a department for kids. Many times, and certainly with his generation, the parents didn't grow up in the business. They were lucky. They got their kid in the business. They didn't know pitfalls or what to search for, or when something was not kosher in the contract. Mm-hmm. So they often had the wool pulled over their eyes, and nobody was watching out for these kids. So, Paul really came to Jay's rescue, and clearly Jay needed some help, And this is one story that I love that, gossip columnists would never print, but, a minor consideration is a charity organization, and Jay needed help, and Paul didn't have any funds. So he called Ron Howard, who was doing quite well, as you might imagine.
Yep.
And he said, Ron, one of us is in trouble. And Ron, without blinking, said, who is it and how much do you need? It's on its way. That's the bond all of these kids have because they all went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really neat. I feel very, very privileged through my husband to personally connect with these folks and know their stories and,
Mm-hmm.
feel their pain and see their success. It's been very, very moving, and I never dreamed, with all the stars I met with, Jack Haley, Ginger Rogers, Jimmy Stewart, just dream come true that way. This is another dream come true. I sat and watched all these shows growing up. These are my shows. Never dreamed, that Chip from My Three Sons would introduce me to my husband.
Wow.
It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I met Paul Peterson when I was 6 years old. He came to our local shopping mall to sign autographs because all the stars of the Nick at Night shows were doing that at the time. And me and my mom, we went to go get his autograph. He was very nice. He looked like he didn't want to be there, but he was very nice. And we got these 8x10s of him signed, and we put them away in my mom's dresser. We should have framed them, and we lost them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Maybe I can get you another one.
Oh, that's so nice of you, Laurie. Yeah, that actually happened to my mom many years before that. She got the Beatles autograph after she went to see them at the Cow Palace. My great aunt, she was in show business. She was actually friends with Bill Bixby's mother, and she had connections, and she got my mom backstage to meet the Beatles and get their autograph.
And she lost that?
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Big bummer.
I have all my autographs. I have all my autograph horror movie posters framed and all my 8x10s in a binder. And I always tell my Mom, frame this shit so you don't lose it.
Yeah, really. I lost two autographs that I got when I was very young. I lost an autograph of Charles Bronson. Mm-hmm. Kind of pisses me off.
Yeah.
And I lost an autograph from Larry Fine.
Wow. I love the Three Stooges.
I love them too. And my mother got his autograph for me when he was drunk and hitting on my mother in the lobby of a hotel in St. Louis, where I'm from, where she was collecting for some charity. So he hits on her, and she's repulsed, of course, as mothers are supposed to be. And then she goes, "Hey, wait a minute, aren't you Larry?" He goes, "Yeah." And she goes, can I have your autograph for my daughter? So when I lost it, I put it on my bulletin board, and then now it's gone. So.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know. I was little. I was very little.
Wow.
But I'm amazed at how many Three Stooges references I make a day.
Oh, me too. I'm just the biggest fan. My dad passed it on to me, passed on to from his father, because his father was a kid when they were popular. And yeah, I mean, we just love it. We can still quote all the lines from all the movies, especially Disorder in the Court. That's our favorite one.
I know, it's really fun. I know my husband always says, "Oh, look," And I always say, Mo. At least 3 times a day. It's just there, you know.
Yeah.
My favorite is when my dog loves to lie on his side and move all 4 of his legs, and he kind of moves around in a circle, and that's when I yell out, Mulberry cheese! Mulberry cheese! Which is another of my favorite episodes. So.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, so I'm trying to start my own horror movie show, and I'm I got some friends that I'm talking to about possibly shooting a pilot. We might do it in the Bay Area, and the ideas I have for it, I don't want it to be just like every other horror show with that's aimed for like the G-rated family Saturday night crowd like Creature Features is. I want to make it kind of dark and irreverent. I got all these. I wrote like an outline of what I want to do, and I was like laughing out loud with everything I want to do with it and stuff. And if we if we do end up getting it done and stuff, I would love it, Laurie, if you were my first guest.
Ooh, deal.
Yeah, I got some funny ideas, I'll tell you, and I think I want to show Little Shop of Horrors as the first one, the original.
Yes.
That's like my favorite Roger Corman movie.
Yeah, it really is great.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I love the remake, but the original, I just love it. It's just Jack Nicholson's second movie.
Yeah, I love early Jack. Yeah, Corman. They made him that studio. It's where Jack first started working.
Yeah, that horror convention I go to in LA every year, Monsterpalooza, they always honor somebody in horror at the after party. And I keep writing to them saying, next year it's got to be Corman because he's in his 90s. He took the genre to a place where so many filmmakers today were influenced. You got to honor him, and they never listened to me, but I'm going to keep pushing it.
Wow, I'm shocked, really.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion.
Well, they like to honor the makeup people, which is great, but for 1 year, I think they should make it a legend like Roger Corman, who's a filmmaker.
I agree. He would be an excellent choice.
Absolutely. Before we wrap this up, I have 2 really funny jokes I'd like to tell you, if you don't mind.
All right.
Okay, a Catholic schoolboy goes into a confession booth and says, "Father, I am so embarrassed to have to tell you this, but I masturbate 5 times a day, and it goes against everything I've learned about in Sunday school. What should I do?" And the priest says, "You are forgiven, my son. Please recite 5 Hail Marys and put some ice on that arm."
All right.
Love that joke.
Very cute.
And what's the Jewish definition of a threesome?
My guess would be bagels, cream cheese, and rocks.
That's a perfect alternative one, but no.
What's yours?
2 headaches and a hard-on.
Oh, that's so good. Good to go out on a laugh.
Yeah, I told both of those to a friend of mine who's been on the show, and she's Jewish, and she was just hysterically laughing at both of those.
Those are great, and thank you for sharing them and cheering me up today. I appreciate it. So, and if you're near Pleasanton this weekend, come out to the Alameda Fairgrounds and come see me, and for sure come see me next month at Creatures Con.
Absolutely, I'm going to try to make the Creatures Con definitely one because I want to meet all these horror hosts and stuff, and I do want to see you absolutely. All
right, well, let me know if you're going, and I'll get you on the list.
Oh, what list?
The VIP list, so free admission.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a VIP list. Thank you, Laurie. I absolutely
will.
There
is there is now.
Oh.
When I call them and say, I have a friend I'd like to, for you to let in, they will do it. So let me know if you're going to go, and that will happen.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Laurie. I'm just so emotional right now hearing that. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, and thanks for ringing me up today. I really had fun.
Oh, I always have fun talking to you, and like I said, I'm gonna try to go to Creatures Con, and I'll let you know.
Okay, Tommy. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Take care.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Laurie Jacobson. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Laurie. You are such a nice lady, and you're so much fun. I just love hearing your stories about show business, and I love the fact that you love to laugh at inappropriate jokes like that. And you are a national treasure, and I hope to see you at Creatures Con. If you like this video, everybody, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present